All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pop this bad boy up there, and we've kind of hinted at this. I know that we mentioned Point Brewery already, but today's Badger Beer Travels is going to be a little bit different. We are not going to hone in on just one city like we did previously with Oshkosh and Burlington. Instead, we are going to go to Portage County. And this is because in a lot of these more kind of smaller ruralish areas in other parts of the state, the breweries are maybe a little more spread out. There's not more than one or two in a lot of the cities. And so combining them, there we go. So combining them is a little bit easier in this facet. So without further ado, a little introduction to Portage County. It's about as central to the state of Wisconsin as you can get. It's got a population around 70,000. It's actually named for a portage between the Wisconsin and Fox Rivers. That shouldn't be a huge surprise. The big city here is Stevens Point, home to the University of Wisconsin. Stevens Point is something that that's kind of the major hub, and there's a couple other small suburbs to that, as well as some other towns scattered around. For getting kind of a distance check, you're over 2 hours from Milwaukee. As you go further north there, you're about an hour and a half due west of Green Bay. And there's a few other things to do there. I know they have a nice sculpture park in Stevens Point. And I actually took when we visited there, this was a few years ago now, but my daughter was very small. She was a baby, and we took her to the Central Wisconsin Children's Museum and had a great afternoon there that also included some brewery visits, which we will get to here in just a second. And actually, to kind of give you now, as I mentioned, the lay of the land in terms of the whole county and why we're doing this as a county instead of just doing Stevens Point. Well, Stevens Point does have two breweries, and we did just do a town with two breweries, but there's other breweries in this area that I want to make sure we highlight. And if I didn't highlight them now, I don't feel like we would be coming back to them. So there are 5 breweries that we will be touching on. The first 2 are both in Stevens Point Brewery that we already have discussed, as well as District 1 Brewing. And then just south of there, about 10-15 minutes, is Oso Brewing in Plover, which is a brewery that some of you may be familiar with. They at one point had a location also in Madison, and their stuff is very widely distributed. And then to the northeast, there we go, McZee's Brew Pub. And then to the south of there is another one of Wisconsin's big names, Central Waters Brewing. And we will get to all 5 of them here. And first up, we are going to talk about District 1, because you saw on the map, they're kind of the ones on the north side of Stevens Point. They are actually named for the neighborhood. It's called the First District. And they are kind of one of the more new kids on the block in this particular area. As they opened up kind of in earlier 2021. It was formerly actually a grocery store, which I found to be interesting. And when I was on their website kind of browsing their stuff, they have a huge tap list. Over, they had at least 25 options. And I know there's a little ebbs and flows. So I'm sure sometimes there's a little bit less, sometimes there's a little bit more. They've got pinball. They've got a bunch of indoor games. They host a variety of events. They have a live music stage. So it really seems like a place for kind of the community to come together and have a variety of activities. And from what I could tell, like I said, they really kind of run the gauntlet with beer. They have stuff like the Skill Mill Pills, just a regular Crazy Days IPA, a nice Scotch Ale, milk stout, while also doing some fruited sours, some more adventurous kind of trendy stuff. So this is definitely a place. This is not one that was open when I made my trek up to the area. So it will definitely be on my radar if I'm ever back there for sure, because it does look like a really cool taproom space, as well as one of those places in terms of breweries that I like to be able to send people here in the Milwaukee area, like a Third Space or a Lakefront, where kind of no matter what style you're looking for, there's probably going to be something on tap. And that seems to be kind of what they're going for. Did I skip? No, I didn't. Oh, Point's at the end. I thought Point was the next one. Never mind. We'll go to Oso's now, and that is in Plover, and they were founded back in 2007. They are now located in an old Shopko building. They made that move actually since I was there. They were actually across the parking lot in a different space when I visited. They have their own kitchen with sandwiches, pizzas. They also host a variety of events as well, whether that be live music, yoga, cornhole league. And they also have an annual 5K to benefit the Never Forgotten Honor Flight, which is coming up very soon. They have over 30 taps. This is another place that apparently if you're up there, you're just going to have a ton of options for beer when you stop in. They also offer wines, cocktails, NA beers, ciders. So again, food, events, tons of beer, tons of other different types of drinks. Kind of no matter what you're looking for, there's something there. I like to highlight the Infectious Groove Sour Ale, which is a very, two style sour ale. When I first moved to Milwaukee back in 2016, there weren't that many breweries that had like a true sour program, especially that distributed sour beers. And at that point, I was really into sour beers. And Infectious Groove was not only readily available, it was also a very approachable. I think you get for $10 for a 6-pack. And so I drank quite a bit of the Infectious Groove. And so I definitely have a soft spot in my heart for that beer. Their Night Rain Porter is another one that you see quite often. The big 2.0 wheat ale, haze positive IPA. And they also make quite a few different of the bourbon barrel aged imperial stouts. I think, as you can tell by the name 2024 Narcissus Bourbon, they come out with a different every year, different variants. So definitely, a brewery that I think many people are familiar with. I think 3 out of the 5 of these breweries are ones that many of you have probably at least heard of if you haven't tried beer from them. Next up, I am going to skip ahead here because I do want to stick with the Stevens Point's breweries. And Point Brewery was founded in 1857. And this was kind of my hint last month when I said that we were going to talk about a historically significant brewery. And Point Brewery is the 5th oldest continuously operating brewery and the 3rd oldest privately owned brewery in the entire nation. And so I don't know that, is from Wisconsin that we have, because we talk about a lot of the brewing history here in the state. And I think Point Brewery does not always get the shine that it maybe deserves because they've been around for so long now. They went through a large expansion, not just now about a decade ago. And as we talked about earlier in the events, they are going to be opening up an actual designated tap room, which is going to be awesome for them. When I visited, obviously, we did take the tour. My wife, who does not like beer, came with me, as well as I had my, at that point, infant daughter strapped to my chest. But we had a great time taking the tour. And they kind of run you through the history, through the facility. And then at the end, you get to try a lot of their beers, or as it shows there, the different Cider Boy line. They also make their own sodas, which is what my wife sampled, and the Whole Hog brand. And there at the bottom of the examples of beer, the Whole Hog Pumpkin Ale. I know that was also discussed earlier. And for me, that is one of the best pumpkin beers I've ever had. I know that particular pumpkin beer has won several medals. It's an award-winning beer. And we kind of already talked about some of these other ones too already too. There's the special lager, the amber lager, the Point Bach beer, as well as the Green Circle Pale Ale. The Milkshake Malt Porter was one that we didn't mention before. And that's another one, though, that I kind of have a soft spot for. I do enjoy that Milkshake Malt Porter as well. Going back here now, we will next stop is at Central Waters Brewing Company. This is another one of the big boys in Wisconsin craft beer. I think, especially once you venture outside of, you kind of talk about your New Glarus, and then you start talking about like kind of the Milwaukee and Madison areas. Central Waters is a heavy hitter located there in Amherst. They moved there from Junction City in 2006. When they were founded there in 1998. They do offer free tours, and I was granted kind of a special tour. I had to go up on a day that was kind of an off time for them, but I was able to reach out to some people because they were not only my 500th brewery visit, they were also my 100th brewery visit in the state of Wisconsin simultaneously. And I'm actually wearing the long sleeve shirt that I got when I visited. And the tour is awesome. I mean, the barrel facility is essentially an airplane hangar just filled with barrels. You can kind of see that one picture there. It's kind of hard to see. That's one of the ones I took on the tour. But if you can see, there's all the barrels on the floor. And then if you look further back, there's literally just barrels stacked up on one another. And they are nationally renowned for their barrel aging program. It's what many people love them for. It's a great spot. And they also have a lot of other interesting facts about them. All their barley comes from Reese Malting in Chilton, Wisconsin. They were one of the founding breweries for the Midwest Hops and Barley Company, and they were also the first brewery granted entrance to Wisconsin's Green Tier program. So they are a brewery that has continuously kind of pushed the envelope. And in relation to that, they also now have a location in Milwaukee here in the brewery district where all the old Pabst buildings are, just on the edge of downtown, and have a pilot brewery down there, make great beer. I've made my way to that place number of times, in particular before going to a Bucks game. And some examples of the beer, I already talked about all their barrel aging things. You see at the bottom, example, the Brewers Reserve Bourbon Barrel Stout. They have a lot of beers like that. But they also have, some of the more classic, I guess, easy drinking, approachable options that you will see more in distro. Would be the Honey Blonde Ale, the HHG Pale Ale, the Rift IPA, Mud Puppy Porter, Tomorrow River Helles, which that last one is probably the one that I go to the most. But yeah, great beer, great facilities. Definitely a brewery that if you have not visited, I would try to get to, because the overall experience is great there. And last, not least, McZee's Brew Pub in Rosholt, established in 2016 in a former IGA store on Main Street. And this is a small town. I forgot. I looked at the population and I completely forgot it. Want to say it was, it's a few hundred people, but not overly large. And it's a small downtown there, but you can go in, get your pizzas, sandwiches, flatbreads, salads, etc. And one thing that I found interesting, besides your, run-of-the-mill kind of events, they also recently had partnered up with one of the local art teachers and displayed projects from the local junior high school and high school. So you can kind of see that. That's kind of the bottom picture down there in the lower left, where they had a bunch of the students' art projects up, which I thought was probably a good way to get all of the students' parents to come in and buy beer, if they were not already aware of them. So, and as you can see, they take a pretty traditional approach from what I could tell with a lot of their beers, nice pale ale, Hefeweizen, golden ale, IPA. I did see that they had a Rosh beer, the smoked beer, which that would be one that I would like to try. But yeah, so to kind of go back here I'll go back again here to the map before we end up, to kind of make sure that everyone remembers where these breweries kind of are. Obviously, 3 of them are kind of located in or near Stevens Point. Depending on where you're driving from, Central Waters or McZee's could be on the way. But otherwise, could make, if you're up there in the Stevens Point area and spend a night, be a nice little beer trip up there. Because again, like I said, you have one of the oldest breweries in the country. You have 2 breweries that are well established and well distributed all across Wisconsin that offer a huge variety of beers. You have a nice little brew pub in one town, and you have another brewery that offers a ton on tap, as well as a bunch of events and games. So definitely a very cool and interesting beer scene there in Portage County. And I am looking forward to seeing where we go next month. But until then, remember, whether it's where you're visiting or where you're living, be sure to drink local everywhere.